Guys, it's Lanikia, and I'm coming to you with season 2, episode 12. China. It's not the China or Chinatown of the Equalizer. Okay, so this episode starts out with we see Mrs. Lee. Now, Mrs. Lee owns a bakery in Chinatown, and she is an up and coming in this area. Now, it's just her second bakery. We find out. So she's opened this bakery a year ago and she's running everyone out of business. They absolutely love this bakery. She's warm, she's kind. It's one of those places that you can go to and you can think back on as a good memory when you start getting up in age about how you used to go there as a child, because she loves the neighborhood kids. She takes care of her patrons. She's just an open, warm woman, and they just adore her in this neighborhood, right? Okay. So then we see that Aunt D and Vi are making this dish, and so they were supposed to be making it, but D has asked Aunt Vi because she go hang out and go shopping with friends. So Robin is a little disappointed by that because she knows how important it is to Aunt Vi, and Aunt Vi is like, no, you're not gonna talk to her, you're not gonna tell her to come back. She wants to hang with friends. That's cool. It is a family recipe, and it's something that I wanted to share with her, but she's not. She would rather her be hanging out with friends and they not make it than her in the kitchen making it with her, feeling guilty because Robin said something to force her to come back, and then she's just sulking looking at her phone all day. So Auntie is like, just leave her alone. So I'm just wrapping them up. So we later find out that Aunt D, so Delilah calls Robin and she's like, hey, I'm out shopping, but can I go to the movies? And Robin's like, I know you're not even asking me that. And she was like, yes, what's wrong with that? And she tells her like how special that was to Aunt Vi, and that she's disappointed in her, but she's not gonna make her choose. She has her permission to go to the movies and everything. And but then she tells her, unlike you, I'm going to keep my commitment. She's like, I have to do something, and unlike you, I'm going to keep my commitment. And of course, Delilah feels guilty about this. So we see Robin go home later on, and we see that Delilah has came and she's eating dinner. They've cooked dinner because Robin was like, oh my gosh, it sounds like you went ahead and made it without Delilah. I'm really sorry she couldn't be here. And she was like, no, I had help. And so we see Delilah did help. She even brought the special bread that they all love but always forget to buy. She remembered to go buy it and everything. So she really made up for it. And she tells her Aunt Vi, I'm sorry that for a moment, I just forgot how important this family tradition is. And I'm happy, she's happy she's passing that down. And so everything worked out in the end with that. They even invited Kesha over. I think her name Kesha. They even invited her over to eat with them. And so she was the one when when Robin was locked up when she got locked up, because Dante had to arrest her because the other guy was coming to do it. So she was the one that Robin reached out to and got her in a program, to just help her get on the straight and narrow path. Well, we find out that she's going back to a school to speak, and she's just like, tells Robin, I feel like such a loser that I'm having to do this. She said, because I remember this woman came and she spoke to us from Scared Straight. And I remember thinking, she's a loser. I'd never be that. And she said, here I am, that these kids are not going to respect me. They're not going to want to hear from me. And she's like, it took a lot of courage for that woman to get up and talk to you. And it's taken a lot of courage for you now. So now you understand how that woman feels. And she said, and maybe one day it does help someone, or somebody looks back at this and see how, what you're going through. It helps them as well, to see how strong you were. And she lets her know that, yes, it's embarrassing. Yes, it's scary, but you're a strong person and you can get through this. And she just told Robin, she was like, I was really good in school. But as good as I was of an athlete in that, it hindered me in, life. But they got through it. And so later on, Robin invited her and she told her, you have a safety net, because she was just like, why did I have to be the one excuse me, to go down this path? And she was like, don't worry, those people had safety nets and now you have one. So it was a nice thing. So now getting to the meat of the story is, again, we see Miss Lee. So later on, you know how Robin has that service out, they give her a call. So we see that Chloe gives Robin a call and she said Miss Lee was killed inside of her bakery. The bakery burned down with Miss Lee inside, and the police saying it's electrical, but she knows it's not electrical. So Robin agrees to look into it for her, and when she does, she realizes it's not electrical as well. And Chloe also gave Robin a cigarette, but she said Miss Lee always fixed up, swept up and everything, but they found the cigarette butt, but she knows the police not going to do anything with it, so she gives it to Robin. So when she does that, Robin starts looking into this with Mel and Harry, and that's when we find out more information about Miss Lee and how she was such a great person, and how actually this was her second shop and everything. And they see that Miss Lee had actually gotten security footage just put in like a week or so ago. So they run the footage and they see that this man named Frank was the last person to actually talk to her. He came into the shop and Miss Lee helped him. And you can hear while he's in there that something's going on. And Miss Lee tells Frank, stay here. And then the video goes black. And so they're like, okay, let's go look for Frank. So Robin finds Frank, but when she gets there, there's an intruder there already with Frank, and he's asking him, tell me what you know. And Frank's saying, I don't know anything. So Robin fights the intruder and he gets away, and she has to make a choice to follow the intruder or, be with Frank. So she just decides to stay. And so she starts asking Frank, what's going on? And he admits that he left Miss Lee, that, he got spooked and he left. And so, but he doesn't know who it was. He knows about 2 or 3 guys, but he's not sure who they are, whatever. And so she says, she's like, okay. And she's about to leave. And he's like, what's going to happen if those people come back? And she was like, well, you'll know what Miss Lee felt like when she was there to face these people with no one, like when they were just left, because she's leaving him. And he was like, I thought, you were going to help protect me and everything. So then we see, they tell Dante about it, and he says he's going to run the print and everything. He runs the print, and he says the print is no good, but the cigarette butt, actually, okay. Oh, before that happens, Robin runs into the intruder because he's been following her around or whatever, because she gives Dante the cigarette butt. And he's been following her around, and he's just like, who are you? He finally tries to make a drop on her, and she knows he's following her, so she actually makes the drop on him. And so when she's with him, they tussle or whatever, but she made the drop on him, so she got him. And so she was like, who are you? Mila. So he tells her his name is Ray, and she was like, you're an ex-cop. She could tell by his gun. And he says he doesn't work for cops or anything like that, because he's one of those jaded ex-cops who was like, no matter what, it didn't help the community for him. It didn't help his community. So Ray is just like, he wants to find out what happened to Miss Lee. And she says, Robin is like, I do too. We need to team together. And that's when he was telling her, I don't work with cops. It said, I saw you with that undercover cop in the car, which is Dante, when she was giving him cigarette butts. And he was like, she was like, listen, we could keep bumping heads, running into each other, or we could just team up. So they do decide to team up, and she introduces him to Mel and Harry. And they're going over things about how the community has been targeted by so many hate crimes and everything. And so they run so as they're talking, they run the print of the cigarette butt, and he says the print matches Frank. But before but before they do all of that, there was another shop owner who received the same graffiti because Miss Lee's restaurant had actually been targeted with graffiti, hate crimes, and slurs written on it. And there was another man. And the police, he didn't speak English, so the police never followed up with him. So, but Ray speaks the language that he speaks, so Cantonese. So Ray goes and speaks to him, and he says that he received the same hate crimes and slurs and everything. And so they realize that the same hate crime, the wording, the writing, and everything is the same. So they have a match. So they found a hit on the cigarette butt, and it's Frank. It's because they're like, okay, it leads them to these two men, right? The graffiti and everything, because Harry uses his skills and he finds out it was these two men that did it. So Mel goes to their job, and they're like, oh, the person you're looking for is not here. But Mel goes behind the scenes, and she sees this red van. Now that's important because the man, the other shop owner earlier had talked about this red van was the one who had targeted him. He saw them driving away in that van. So they know it was him. Also, before that happened, they thought it was somebody else, like another bakery. So they go and visit him, and they find out it wasn't him, but his nephew was sending the hate slurs. And he was like, why would you do that? And he was like, the nephew was like, because we've been here, and she comes in and she takes this. The uncle is just, he says sorry, he's sorry about that, but they wouldn't go that far. Like, his nephew was wrong for sending the hate slurs, but they wouldn't go that far. Okay, so jumping back, so Mel finds the van and she goes out, and Harry was like, don't go out to that van alone, but it's Mel. So she goes out and she finds the cigarette butts. So she swipes the cigarette butts for the van, and as she's swiping them, the two guys who actually own the van come out. Now this is important because we find out from Ray that Miss Lee had actually fought these guys, and one of them, and that's why she was bruised, because she had actually fought them, and one of them she had stuck with her key in the eye, and one of the guys had that key in the eye. So Mel knows it's those guys. So she's getting the cigarette butts for evidence, and they come up on her, and they were about to drive. They were about to try to take her away, and then Harry comes up, and so it allows her to escape. So they give the cigarette butts to Dante, and he says they're not the cigarette butts found at the bakery, and those butts are not a match, but they do match Frank. So they bring Frank in for questioning. Dante starts off just he and Frank is like, no, I've never seen these guys, because they give him photos of a few people, and he's like, no, I've never seen these guys and everything. But then Dante shows him that, no, actually you're friends with them. You're friends with them, and you know them, y'all have taken pictures together and everything. And they said, so what happened, Frank? And so then that's when Ray comes in. I guess they were kind of do good cop, bad cop, but I couldn't tell which one was good. But Frank talks to Ray, and Ray is just like, so what happened? They told you to get the drop on Miss Lee. So we find out, even though Frank doesn't confess, we find out that he was like the scapegoat. Like not scapegoat, but he was the guy to help Miss Lee let her guard down, because it was after hours when he came to visit her for a midnight snack, and she knew him because she knew everyone in the neighborhood. And so she let him in. And so while he distracted her, the other guys came in through the back. And from what Dante and Ray were saying, they don't think Frank knew that it was going to go that far where they were going to actually kill Miss Lee, but he was someone who was in on it. And Ray kind of loses it while he's interrogating him, and Frank lawyers up. And they're just like Dante, and Robin are like, well, we'll still work this case. And Ray said, just as well as I that this is they'll never find justice. Hate crimes are hard to prove. And so they all go their separate ways and everything. And then Frank hits Robin up, and he's like, I'm going to end this. They're not going to get away with this. And she says, don't do anything crazy. But of course, he goes and he meets up with the two guys, and they start beating him up and everything, and they're going to take him to the junkyard, which is important because when Robin and Dante go to find Ray, because they know he went there, they're like, oh, where would they take Ray, because he's not in that warehouse spot where they work. And Mel says, when they were going to attack me, they told me about taking me to the junkyard. So they find the nearest junkyard, right? So they're trying to get there as quickly as possible. Now Ray is talking to the man in the back of the vehicle, and he's just telling them, y'all didn't kill Miss Lee for a hate crime. You killed Miss Lee because she was a 70-year-old woman who fought back, and she won against you or whatever. Yeah, it is a hate crime, but that's not the reason you did it. Not for justice or whatever. Like, they killed her for a hate crime, but it wasn't for justice for them, or to get back what was robbed from them. It was because you were mad that you hate this woman and her race, if you want to just say her race, and so that's why you went, you did that, did the graffiti, the slurs and everything, but then you killed her because she got the drop on you. So then we find out that Ray was actually recording all this, and right when they were about to kill him, because the guy got upset and he was about to kill Ray because they had made it to the junkyard, Mel is like, she knows where the junkyard was, and she was closer, and she starts shooting in, and she opens up the door, and the guys are like, dang, because they realize who she is, and one was going to reach for the gun again, and she shoots his hand. But anyways, they finally get the two guys, because Ray recorded their confession to them, killing Miss Lee and everything, and of course attempted murder of him. And so they're going to get them. Dante tells Robin he thinks that they're going to go away for this crime, but it's just depressing and sad because there's so many others that will never get justice for hate crimes and everything. And Ray is going to the hospital, but Mel says, I'm going to go with you because we already know you can't stay out of trouble. So that was the episode of The Equalizer. Excuse me. I thought it was more of a social episode. It wasn't one of my favorite episodes. It was a good episode, but like last week was so good, but it was probably because Jada was on there. But so it wasn't one of my favorite. It wasn't one of my favorite episodes, but that was it. Oh, and Chloe, they called her, Miss Lee called her constant noise because she was always following Miss Lee around, and she said she's gonna keep fighting and make sure that Miss Lee's death was not in vain, and especially on Asian hate crimes and everything. So that was The Equalizer, guys. I'll see you next week for a new episode.